Here we go. Let's rock and roll. Welcome. Hello there. Talented, persevering business owner and entrepreneur. Greetings to you, Matthew McDonald here, and welcome to this training session. And today we're going to have a really cool conversation about online marketing, and we're going to be talking about taking an offline business online. Also, we'll cover expanding online businesses, and what we're really going to be focusing on in today's conversation is going to be the marketing process. And the reason I want to cover this today in this Destiny Awakening for Business Owners and Entrepreneurs training session is many people sometimes fall into the trap of thinking their product or service, if you've got a good enough product or service, then you're going to make it. Or, if you spend more money on advertising, then if you have a big enough budget, you're going to make it, you're going to get through. But if your marketing process is not in place, no matter how hard you try to succeed or how much money you throw at the internet part of your business, then it's not going to work. You're going to run out of money. And then you're going to have to either close that part of your business or you're going to have to go elsewhere. So today's training, it's going to be for offline business owners that want to expand their online reach. Also for online business owners like myself that want to expand their business. We're going to cover some really awesome content for that. And obviously for those entrepreneurs with great ideas, and you're looking at not just being another great idea out there, but you actually want a system for bringing that idea to market. So I'm going to cover quite a bit of content here today, but we're going to go through it. I'll actually time myself. We'll go through this fairly quickly. And I'm going to cover the RLPC process, which is a process that I use. And it's basically your reach, your lead, your prospect and customer. Absolutely essential for a foundation for your business. And if you are an offline business, it's a fantastic time to get the online marketing side right. And if you have this process, the RLPC process right, then you're basically, it's a massive advantage to you. You're very competitive, and it's going to be hard for anybody else with a similar service to get the sort of results you'll be getting. Once we get through the RLPC process, we'll also include the 7 pitfalls to avoid. These are really common. It seems like almost everybody is doing these, and so we don't want to be learning everything the hard way. I want to make sure you don't fall into those pits. So basically with today's training, what you're going to be walking away with, if you do end up listening to this, you should be walking away with the ability to identify what's holding your business back from the next level. So oftentimes we want to grow our business. It's not always going to be taking new territory to grow your business or expanding. Sometimes it's going to be there's things in our business that are holding us back, and so we need to identify those and get rid of those, and then we can automatically move forward. It's like that hot air balloon that's lifting off, and you've got those sandbags around the basket, and when you let go of those sandbags, you're going to start to lift up to new altitudes automatically. So that's the identify part. Focus also, knowing what to focus on. So, as a business owner, you've got so many things on your mind. There's so many people pulling at you from every angle that you really need to protect your focus. And you also need to know what you need to be focusing on. So we'll cover that a little bit. That's a walk away for you. And also I want to give you some building blocks, a more practical plan of actually where to go from here to make a change. And I'll touch on this a little bit later, but I always say that never try to completely change something when you get introduced to maybe a new concept or something that can help your business. We don't want to change your business suddenly. What we want to do is introduce some improvements and then we want to merge those improvements into your business and see if they work for you. So also, if you are doing any kind of sales, and when it comes to online business, there generally is a sale involved in the process. So today we'll also look at how to completely eliminate the sales pressure process. So selling without pressure. So that's what the walk away with here is, and why you're here, that's going to be totally up to you. I've just prepared some content here for business owners and entrepreneurs. I'm going to be basically sharing for things that have worked, proven things, and something that you can start doing straight away. It'll give you a massive head start in the right direction. So as we get into this session, I'm going to be squeezing a lot of details in here, and we'll just see how we go. The main thing is going to be the process, and basically I want you to walk away with something that you can use this week. So something you can use this week, and that's going to be the process, understanding the process. So let's take a quick deep breath. I like to do this in the morning, at night. This is not a motivation session, but hey, if your brain activity improves just by taking a couple of deep, big breaths, you're able to absorb more information, and not just absorb it, but see the link between this information and your existing business, which only you can do, which you're going to be the best at. Then we'll take a couple of deep breaths. That'll do for me. I'm just taking 4 now. It's up to you if you want to do that, but hey, do it. Be a peak performer, be an Olympic. Well, let's go through this and make this time together work for us. The first thing I want to talk about, and what we're going for here, is this, and you need to know this for yourself. Am I trying to expand my existing online business, which is maybe take it to the next level? You really need to figure out your numbers before you can do that, and then you can know how much you want to expand. Or am I an offline business and I want to come online effectively? Maybe I've got a website, I don't know what to do with it. I don't really have a business process, or I don't have a marketing process. So our walk away here, as mentioned earlier, is going to be to learn the marketing process. When you learn the marketing process, everything else starts to take shape. So the first thing we want to learn about, or the first thing we want to do, is we want to have an environment in our business where we can measure progress. And the progress that we want to be measuring, first, is going to be time. So when you're measuring progress for time, you're obviously putting an X amount of time into your business daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. And what I'm going to do here today is I want to work with shorter terms, because I want to get to the results really quick, and the quicker we can see the results, the quicker we can generate change. So even if you have long-term goals, we want to be measuring short-term returns on our time. So for instance, you might think, okay, I'll put in 50 hours a week into my business. You might put in more than that. You want to know exactly what am I getting in return for that. What I'm actually talking about is measuring like an hour. So putting an hour into an activity and measuring what your return to that is. If that's a new concept to you, you might start per day, or you can even break up your day into different components. I like to work in 2-hour components, and I like to measure what was my return on those 2 hours. Now, the way I personally measure my return on that time is I will measure it on immediate income, and also on increased income over the next 90 days. So that's a model that I use. It's going to be a different training session how I do it. But basically what I want you to get in this part of the training is that you need to be very aware of your time, and you need to be able to measure what value you are getting out of your time. So when it comes to business, we measure things by money. So how much money is something producing? Obviously in business, we're there to create value for people. We're there to make a difference. But the way we measure that difference is through money. So when somebody gives you money, you know, hey, now I'm making a difference. If everyone says, I love your business, but they're not willing to pay for it, they're not willing to pay for your service or your product, then the chances are you might not really be making a difference out there anyway. So we want to measure our time, we want to measure our money. Money is obviously into marketing or your advertising budget, or if you have staff or a team on, then you want to be measuring the return you're spending on that money. And you want to use numbers. You don't want to use hypotheticals. Numbers will always tell you the full story. So use numbers, get used to using numbers and measure time in numbers. You might use minutes, hours. If you're getting started, you might use days. I love hours, and as I mentioned, I use 2-hour units. But you need to measure money, dollars, euros, wherever you are, and also time. So you heard that beep. I've always got things beeping because even as I'm recording this for you right now, I need to measure this if it's going to make an impact. So use numbers, and obviously there's the input and output. So when we're measuring something, and that's what we're talking about here, we want an environment in our business, and you are in control of your business. You want to create an environment where you're measuring progress. And so you're putting something in and you're getting something out. If you're having a conversation with one of your sales reps or something like that, then you want to be measuring. You don't just want to be saying, hey, what's wrong with you? Are you sick or something? If they're not getting results, you need to ask yourself, okay, the conversations I'm having with this person, is it producing an increase in their sales? Is it increasing their motivations? Do they have a vision for the business and that sort of stuff? So every time you're doing some sort of effort, you want to be able to measure return on that effort. And before you get started with measuring, you need to know actually, where am I starting from? So where am I starting from? What am I getting currently? You want to get more, right? I want more. We all want more. But where am I right now? Do I have a sustainable system? Obviously, if you're not on investor money and you're actually profitable business, then you've got something to measure there, definitely. And you know already, hey, this is what's happening and this is the return that we're getting. And then obviously know what is working and what you do different. So this is something that is quite a big topic, but what you want to always take a note in your business, whether you're getting started or expanding, is you want to be always focusing on your difference. And that's really the only thing you need to market out there, is your difference. What's different about you? What's different about your service and your product? What's different to the actual person? The person who's experiencing your results. If you're a B2B business, I do a lot of B2B. It's the same thing. You're still dealing with people, and the same principles apply. At the end of the day, it's people that are making the decision whether they want to do business with you. So that's my first point here with today's training session, is to create an environment where you can actually measure progress, and you want to make sure that that environment includes measuring your time, your money. You want to be using numbers. You want to know inputs and outputs, and you don't want to get overwhelmed when you're getting started. You're going to say just, hey, today I'm going to look at the clock and I'm going to have a look at per hour, what am I actually getting back for what I'm doing. We'll come back to this a little bit later if we have time. So once you've got it in your mind now, hey, I need to have an environment where I measure progress, then we want to go into the RLPC process, which is going to be your reach, your lead, your prospect, and customer process. So when you're taking your business or service, when you're taking a product or service to the marketplace, there needs to be a process how you do it. And this is kind of what's going to separate people that get really far from beginners that really never break out of the newbie or beginner stage, or never end up building a team. Nothing wrong with if you don't want to build a team. You might do really well as a sole entrepreneur, but if you want to build a team, then you need to understand processes. And one of the key processes is the marketing process. And the marketing process is pretty much the roadmap of a person that goes through the process of first hearing about you or finding out about you to becoming a paying customer. So it's a roadmap. It's your marketing roadmap. So let's go through the process here. First of all, we've got reach, and reach is pretty much anybody that you can get to in any possible way. So that's the reach. Anybody that you can get to in any possible way. That includes your neighbors, that includes your acquaintances, that includes sometimes your acquaintances, that includes sometimes your business partners, customers, basically anybody. And don't worry about paid or unpaid marketing and those sort of things. Don't worry about that now. We're just working on reach. So reach, whether it's paid or free or word of mouth, whatever it is, your reach is anybody that you can get to. Anybody that you can get to hear your voice, look at your poster, get their attention for a split second. Anybody that you can do. That's your reach. And what you can do if you want to do a bit of an exercise with reach and you haven't given it much thought, an absolutely essential part of your marketing process is you can sit down with a paper and pen, maybe 10 or 20 minutes, and write down a full page of every possible person that you can reach today in the next 60 minutes. Who can I reach right now? And you'll be amazed. You'll be absolutely amazed how many people are in your reach. So there's a little exercise you can do. That's not today's exercise, but if reach is new to you, then do it. Next one is lead. So reach, we go to lead, and basically a lead is anybody within your reach, which we just covered, that you identify. This is you identifying them as a good fit for your product or service. So first of all, we had the reach. That was the broad, anybody you can get to in any possible way. And then we've got our leads. So a lead is anybody that you identify within your reach that would be a potential user or potential prospect for your product or service. That's a lead. Now, they don't have to agree with you, but you can get to them and you think, hey, maybe they will be good for my business or service. The next level is prospect, and it can really help to break up the lead and prospect, which rarely people do. And the prospect is somebody that has shown interest or given you some type of indication that, yes, I would be a potentially good for your product or service. So the difference with the lead and prospect is, with a lead, you identify them as potentially being good for your product or service. As a prospect, now they've indicated back to you. They've given some kind of indication. It may not be verbal. It may not be saying, hey, I'm really interested. It may be some type of action that they've taken that qualifies them now as a prospect. And as a prospect, they're going to get more attention from you. They become more valuable to your business. And then finally, as a customer, well, a customer is when money takes place, when a money transaction takes place. Now they're a qualified customer. Now from there, we would go to repeat buyer and so on. But now we want to keep this simple, because until we have the basics down, there's no use expanding. It's only going to shut you down. You're going to get overwhelmed. So we've got reach, we've got lead, we've got prospect, and we've got customer. And the marketing process is how somebody, whether they know it or not, goes through the process from reach to lead to prospect to customer. Now, couple of notes about this process. First of all, it is a process. So we don't want to be, obviously when someone's a customer, they've made a purchase. So we're not trying to sell to somebody who's in the reach or lead category. Now you might do different promotions and there are going to be exceptions, yes, but I'm talking about how you actually build the structure for your business. So it is a process. and each process requires targeted focus. Now, this is for you as the business owner, and nobody else is going to do this for you. And that's putting literally, intentionally your focus on a particular task. So right now I'm working on my reach. That's all I'm working on. Okay, right now I'm working on my leads. That's what I'm working on. Right now I'm working on my prospects. I'm working on my customer. So you use your focus. You're not focused on your business. It's too broad. It's too big. You're not focused on your business growth. It's too big. It's too broad. You're focusing on different aspects of your business to grow your business. As an example, let's say you want to generate more customers. Well, you want more customers. You want more sales. So what you do, you look at your prospects. You can go to your prospects and you can say, okay, for the next 1 hour, I'm going to think about my prospects and think about what's holding them back and what could I do today, or what could my team do today that would get these prospects to cross that line and generate their first purchase. Now, if you need an urgent amount of cash flow, then you would be most likely best off going for customers and asking yourself, how can I get my customers to make a second purchase today? They're going to be the most responsive. But you need to work on all of these areas, and wherever your weakness is, that weakness is actually affecting your entire marketing process. And we might do some further training and actually spend a whole lesson on each one of these processes. But today I want you to get the whole process and understand how this works. Now, you might be thinking, well, there are exceptions, or are there exceptions to the process? What about if somebody's never heard of my product or service before and they just come and buy straight away? Yes, absolutely, and that's great when it happens. It will happen, and a lot of businesses have that option that it can happen. But you as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, when you're putting your focus, when you're using your effort, you're not putting your effort into random sales. You're putting your effort into the process, because the process will bring you the maximum return for your focus and for your effort. So even though we cater for exceptions and we cater for people becoming customers without going through the process, when we're actually working on our business, we are working on the process. And that process might be a little bit different for your business. You know that, but this is a fantastic core foundation to get started with. And you can expand it. And there's no use getting fancy with it until you've got the basics down. So each stage of the process is important. Each stage of the process requires your focus. And yes, there will be exceptions, but when you are building your business and looking to expand it, you're not looking to do it with those exceptions. You're putting your time and focus every single day into the process activities, and you're focusing on one part of the process at a time. So that's it. You've got to keep in mind that your focus has incredible value. And actually, the more you do it, the better you get at it. I think martial artists, I don't know, I'm not a martial artist, but they use a lot of exercises to improve their focus, and they get very good at it, and they become unbeatable. Well, that's what I want you to get with your business. I want you to get so good at focusing and so targeted with your focusing that you become unbeatable in your market or niche. And yes, there is going to be competition, but you've got to look at it as a sportsman. There's nothing wrong with competition. If it wasn't for competition, the services that we receive and the services that we enjoy from other businesses and services would not be at the standard they're at. So competition is fantastic because it improves service, and it also improves your performance. So be very thankful always for people that want to compete with you, and it also keeps you moving forward. All right, so let's look at process alternatives just really quickly. There are, as I mentioned, you could have a different process alternative. You've got more complex processes, but as I mentioned, you want to first have these basics down. And what I actually do, I don't really want to go into the alternatives at this stage. It's going to be too much to put into this lesson, and we're going to end up doing a really long session. And I really want you to walk away with something that you're going to use. So we might come back to that. I've got that in my notes there, but I'm not going to go there. Just a couple of quick tips on teams versus individuals. I understand sometimes we might be working as a sole entrepreneur, and sometimes we might be working with a team, which is super exciting. But the same applies with the process. When you're working with a team, however, depending on the size of your team, assigning team members to different parts of the process. So you've got your lead generation, you've got your reach and lead, which is basically your advertising process. Then you've got your prospecting, you've got your sales. In most cases, for most teams and businesses, you'll do much better if you have people that specialize in each department. If you've got a sales team, for instance, I've done a lot of sales in my life. If you are getting sent out there, or you're sending 4 or 5 guys out there to do cold calling, then that's possibly not going to be the most effective. If it's working for you, congratulations and keep doing it. But what you might want to introduce is you might want to recognize those what are their strengths for the different team members, and you might want to overlap some of the activities in the way that you might have somebody who's doing more prospecting, another one's doing more closing the sales, and then you'll actually generate a lot more sales by the end of the week. So that's something to consider with teams, and obviously with companies and bigger organizations, they're going to have different departments for these different stages of the marketing process. Individual, and just quickly on the team before we go to the individual here, is if you have, let's say, a medium-sized team, you might have 7, 8, 9, 10 people on your team. Some components, like for instance the lead generation and also the reach, sometimes 2 people working together can work really well because they can kind of bounce off each other better ideas and more effective ways of doing this. It's going to depend on your team. You know, if they've got an employee kind of mindset and they're just there to do what they're told, then a team environment may not work the best. It might work better to actually tell them exactly what to do. But you can play around with that. If you have more people, then you can try working in small teams, or then you can work with individuals. You might have 1 or 2 people doing all the closing sales. They're already hot prospects. They're keen. They've found out about your product or service. They're interested. And so you might have 1 or 2 top guns competing against each other, just going around closing sales. But what you want to do, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, is you don't want to stop what you're doing. If something's working, just keep doing it. But you might want to introduce small components of change into the process and just see how that's affecting the business. And if you don't see the change straight away, realize there's also a transition process that, even though it's a good change for your business, if the results are not immediate, it doesn't mean that it's not a potentially good change in the long run or in the medium-term run for your business. So let's keep going and talk about individuals also with the process. And these are my heroes. These are people that are out there doing it. Maybe you haven't had a lot of training, or maybe you've just been thrown in the deep end, or you have an idea and you're out there trying to make it happen. A marketing process for you is absolutely essential if you want to make it out there. And you're going to have to wear each one of those hats. But what you want to do is you don't want to be wearing all the hats at the same time. So you want to break up the marketing process and break up your time into different activities. And it depends on your temperament and how you perform best. If you are the sort of sprinter type, then you might actually hit on all those 4 different stages of the marketing process in the one day, and then by doing it every single day, 5 or 6 days a week, you're going to get really, really good at it. And by hitting on each one of those aspects of the business, each one of those stages, then your business is definitely going to grow. If you are more of a long-term thinker, then you can spread those out. Monday is going to be the reach day, Tuesday is going to be my leads day. I'm going to focus on lead generation and so on. Then you can do that, and then as different areas need focus, then you can major on those areas. So the main thing about it is, whether you're working as a team or an individual, is that you incorporate all of these into your business. And it really needs to have a plan. So you need some kind of plan, and I'll touch on this at the end of the lesson to give you something to walk away with. Maybe give you a little bit of homework if you're keen to do it. So that's the marketing process, and let's quickly finish off here with the 7 pitfalls. You want to look out for these. These are really common. Some are going to be familiar to you. And the first pitfall, I would say, is not having the process. And that's why I really wanted to cover that in today's session. If you don't have a process and you're trying to make it online, or you're trying to take your offline service and expand online, then you're really going to be lost, and you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel like nothing works, and that's because you have a process. Also, you're going to probably experience a lot of sales pressure, where you're trying to sell to people that are not even interested in your product. The reason they're not interested, they might be the ideal prospect, is they haven't been through your marketing process. But once people go through your marketing process, by the time they get to the sales stage, they're ready to buy. They're actually waiting to buy when you do this right. So if you don't have a process, if that's you, then that's something you can start with, and you can use the process we've covered in today's session. And if you find it too overwhelming, then at least start with the process of prospects and customers, and possibly leads. So if you can separate those, and then you can add the reach to it afterwards. The second pitfall is going to be not having a process plan, or a plan for your process. So once you have we've talked about this today, once you have the marketing process, you need a clear plan of how you're going to exercise that marketing process. And that plan really involves your focus. And it involves, what am I focusing on today? Or what am I focusing between 9 and 10 today? What's my focus? Or between 9 and 11 or 9 and 12? What is my focus? What aspect of the process I'm focusing? So if you've got a marketing process but you don't really have a plan, and you're randomly jumping from one thing to another, you want to definitely put together a bit of a plan, that involves your marketing process, and knowing exactly what you're focusing on. Now, the pitfall number 3 is not knowing your numbers. Oh my goodness, let's spend a little bit of time here, because this is everything to you. And so many people don't know their numbers. You don't know your numbers. You need to know your numbers. And numbers are fantastic. You've got to become friends with numbers, because you can't make money without knowing numbers. And you don't have to be super smart or some sort of a math genius to know your numbers. So let's look at some basics here. First of all, the numbers that I would say you need to start with. You need to know exactly how many leads do I have. Leads, it needs to be a number. It can be off a little bit, but you need a number. You can't just say I have lots of leads or I have tons of leads. How many leads do I have? Each one of those leads has a certain value, and we'll come back to that. How many prospects do I have? you need to know how many prospects are in your business, in your organization. These are people that possibly said no to your offer. These are people that have shown some interest. Whatever measurement you use to determine who's a prospect, and I'd recommend separating leads from prospects. You need to know how many of these are. Once you know how many of them you have, it's easy to move them to the next level. And then customers. You need to know how many customers you have. You need to know how many customers you have. You need to have access to them. You need to have their up-to-date contact details. So as for knowing numbers, these are the numbers you need to start with. You need to know how many leads do I have, how many prospects do I have, how many customers do I have or do we have. The next numbers you want to be knowing is your conversion, and this conversion is your marketing process conversion, and it will have an overall conversion, but what you really want to know is the different stages conversion. So you've got leads to prospect conversion. You also do have reach to lead, but I wouldn't start with that. I would start with your lead to prospect conversion because you can quickly make a difference there. You've also got, so that's going to be a number, that's going to be a percentage. So this is the percentage of my leads that are becoming prospects. Not every lead will become a prospect. Not every prospect will become a customer. So you need to know what percentage of those leads is becoming a prospect. Then you have the prospect to customer. You need to have a percentage for that. And you need to know exactly what percentage of my prospects are becoming customers. So this is something that's going to help you identify problems as well as opportunities in your business. As soon as you have these numbers, it's like somebody turned the lights on and all of a sudden you can see it. You're like, wow, okay, we've got a problem here. And once you identify the problem, you can fix that problem. You can find a solution. If you don't know what the problem is, you go and see a doctor, and they don't know what's wrong with you. They're not going to figure out how to make you well. If you have these already down, you've got the lead to prospect, the prospect to customer numbers down, then you can also add the repeat buyers. But I'm not including that in today's lesson because we want to cover the marketing process first, and then we can expand from there. So that's your conversion numbers. The next numbers you can do once you have those, it's easy for you to work out your process stage value. So when you know exactly your customer average value, which is you know how much an average customer is spending with you and how much of that money is profitable, you will be able to calculate very easily what's the average customer value. So you might have one product, so it's going to be super easy. If you have multiple products, then you just get the average. So you just basically add up all the money you're making, your business is making, all your customers, and then divide that money by the customer, and that'll give you your average customer value. You can go and do lifetime customer value and those sort of things, but sometimes that can be a distraction, and that can be a little bit unrealistic for a lot of businesses. So because you need cash flow and you need to be able to make quick changes. So when you're getting started with this, just think, okay, what's an average customer spend in their first month with us, or even the first purchase if that's your main product. If you have like a flagship product, then you just look at the flagship product sales and you can work out what's the average customer worth on that. Once you know that, you can get your prospect value, and this is an important number also. And you basically get your prospect value by dividing the prospect to customer percentage, by timesing the prospect to customer percentage times customer value. So for instance, if your customer value is $100 per customer, that's the average spend of a customer, and your prospect to customer ratio is 20%, then it's going to be 20% of $100. So that's $20. That means each one of your prospects is worth $20. It's an easy to work. I may have not explained it really clearly, but if you start with your customer value, I'll just quickly go through this again. So you do your customer value, you work out each customer is worth $100 to my business. That's the average customer value. Then you know, okay, look at the previous number which we worked out, and that's the marketing process from prospect to customer. And you worked out that 20% of my prospects turn out to be customers, and you should be able to actually get that number up, in most cases way up, but I'm just using easy numbers for example here. Then that would make your prospect value at $20. 20% of customer value is the prospect value. And then what you want to do, and this is really important, it's going to help you with your marketing budget, is you want to work out your lead value, and your lead value is going to be the lead to prospect ratio. That's a percentage times your prospect value. So once again, let's work with the same numbers. So if you say 20% of all my leads are becoming prospects or qualified prospects, then that means your lead value is 20% of your prospect value. So if your prospect value is $20, then your lead value is going to be $4. So now we know our lead value is $4, and every time you get another lead, you understand that, hey, my business has just made $4. So these are the numbers we need. And once we've got these numbers, it's like the lights go on. Hey, now we can start working on our business, not just being stuck in our business and overwhelmed by everything, but we're working on our business. Let's keep going here. And what I want to do, number 4, is not taking time to think. I would absolutely love to do a whole session on number 4, and we're just doing the 7 pitfalls here. And I don't want you to fall into these 7 pitfalls. Is not taking time to think. And as business owners and entrepreneurs, we get so super duper busy that sometimes we just forget to think. We don't take time out to think. The way I take time out to think is I have an early morning session with myself. I have a thing called quiet time. I read the Bible and I think about my business, and I ask myself questions that are going to help me to grow in different aspects of my business. So what you need to do, regardless of your business, regardless of who you are, of what you do, you need time to yourself. Yes, you can brainstorm and do all that. You need time to yourself with a paper and pen away from your computer, and you need the time to think and think about the process and isolate your thinking. When you're thinking, you need to give your thinking a framework. You're not thinking, oh, what's a great idea today? No, you give yourself like train tracks for the mind. Basically, you might say, okay, I've got 500 prospects in my database that never became customers. What's one thing we could do today to get at least one person to become a customer? You go ahead, you try that out, and if it works, you implement that into your marketing process. A few weeks later, you come and do your numbers again. Prospect to customer ratio has changed, and that's how you grow your business. So think time also includes this. So let me just check my notes here. When done right, this can be your highest paid activity. So yeah, when you're doing the think time right, you've got to realize, hey, it's not just time to you. This is one of your highest paid activities when you actually think about your business outside of your business. And the think time involves planning. It also involves evaluating. So looking at what you're already doing, and it involves exploring opportunities. Probably the best way to think about it is when I have my think time, I'm exploring new opportunities. I'm evaluating the processes that I'm doing now, and I'm looking for improvements. And one of the best ways to do that is ask yourself questions. Ask yourself questions, and that's going to unlock your ideas for better processes in your business, and that's how you grow your business. So as an example, if this is not something you're doing and you have a really tight schedule, which is very likely, you might even take 5 minutes in the morning and think of one thing you can do differently that would pocket you an extra $100 a day. Now, it's not about the extra $100 a day, depending who you are. For some people, that makes a big difference. For others, it's not really worth your thinking. But by thinking in these sort of frameworks, what's one thing I can do today that would put an extra $100 in my pocket, then that's going to really give you guidance with opening up for better ideas. And you'll come up with ideas that will transform your business. The other thinking you want to be doing is you want to be reviewing your progress. You want to be reviewing what's happening. You might do that at the end of the day. You can even do it in the morning about the previous day. And you can basically take a look at what you're doing, take a look at any changes you're making, and review how those changes are going. Pitfall number 5 is not knowing your difference. As a business owner and entrepreneur, your success depends on understanding your difference. And there is something unique and different about you that hopefully comes through in your business. And it's that difference that's going to attract people to you. So you really need to know what that difference is. And if you don't know what it is and you want to get more about it, you want to find out in regard to your business what's that difference, then basically you can look at your best customers. What are my highest value customers and why are they here? So if you identify your best customers and think, why are these best customers here? Then that's going to help you identify your difference. And the final number 7 pitfall, and yes, there are more, but these are the 7 pitfalls, is being good at too many things, too many different things. So you might be super talented, you might be good at many different things. It doesn't mean you should be doing it. You might be gifted and talented in 10 different things that pull in 10 different directions. As an example, it doesn't mean you should be doing all 10 things right now. So what you want to do is you want to recognize your strengths, what you're good at, identify why people have purchased from you before, why people are attracted to you, and then major on that and basically abandon everything else. But don't abandon the marketing process. You're going to need the marketing process if you want to grow. So there we go. 7 pitfalls. I'll give them to you really quickly in a bullet format here. 7 pitfalls to avoid. The first one was not having a process, and that's what you learned on this course. The second one is not having a process plan. So that's how you actually exercise or implement the process, and that's going to include the time you're putting into the process. Number 3 was not knowing your numbers. Not knowing your numbers, that's an easy one to fix. You need to find out your numbers. You need to write it down. And number 4 is not taking time to think. So you want to be thinking in the morning. You want to be thinking in the evening. You want to be thinking outside of your business environment. And when you think, you want to be asking questions and you want to be reviewing. Number 5 was not knowing your difference. Number 6, following the wrong people. Actually, I think I skipped that one. Sorry about that. So number 6 was not following the wrong people. And that is so obvious. Basically, the reason I threw this in here was because it seems like everybody says that if you want to do something you've never done before. Oh, no, that was another saying. Is that people pretty much say that just do what they do, just do what they did and you'll get the results that they got. So if you're not successful, just find somebody who is successful and do exactly what they do and you'll also be successful. Now, I love that. I think it's a really inspiring idea. I think there's a lot of truth to it, but it's not always a reality. It's not always a reality that you can find somebody who's doing something that you do and they're successful at it, and you're able to implement their strategy into your business, and then your business succeeds. There's too many variables, there's too many differences that we don't even recognize from the outside. So in real life, I mean, mentorships are great, but in real life, that may not be the case. And so if we follow the wrong advice, even if we follow the right advice, doesn't mean it's the right advice for us, and doesn't mean it's the right advice for us in this season. So you want to be careful about who you listen to, who you're following, and every time you're listening to people, every time you're following, when you get an email, you open that email, you click through, you watch the video, or you read that blog post, there is something about that person that's affecting who you're becoming. So you have to choose who you're letting into your life. And as a business person, as an entrepreneur, this is so essential, because the people you let into your life are going to affect how your business comes out. So following the wrong people, and number 7 was being good at too many different things. So that's basically the core content of what I wanted to cover in today's training session. And as we wrap things up, you might be wondering, well, where do I go from here? You know, this is all exciting. This sounds like good content. Maybe there's something I can do here. Congratulations if the lights are going on, because I don't want you to fail. And I think if you start implementing these things into your business, then you can expect results. The first thing I would say to you about implementing this stage is don't make sudden changes. I'm telling you not to dump what you're doing and start doing what I've been talking about. Don't do that. What you want to do, first of all, if you've got something working, that is so valuable. Never throw that away, because there's possibly something you're doing in your business different from everybody else, and it's working for you. You want to protect that, and you want to keep doing that. What you want to do, however, is you want to start implementing improvements in small components into your process. So first of all, what I would actually recommend to do is, first you want to write down your numbers. This is what you need to do. So start with your customers and prospects. Everybody should be able to do this. So how many customers do I have, and how many prospects do I have? If you have 0 customers, you don't have a business yet. You need different training. This training is not going to be the best for you. You have a different problem. But if you have customers, you need to know how many customers do I have and how many prospects do I have. And then you can go from there and separate your prospects and leads if you haven't done that already, and also get the number for the leads. But the first numbers is customers and prospects. Then do your leads. And don't worry about figuring out the number for your reach just yet. We can come back to that later. What we want to do is we want to get some progress here. Now, once you've got your numbers there, you need to step back and look at what you're doing. So what you can do is actually make a list, and make this as literal as possible. Don't just think that I can sit back and make a list of everything I do and just play through your mind. Actually, take some paper and pen with you to work, and make a list every 15 minutes, every half an hour, every 1 hour. Write down just a quick summary of what you just did. And at the end of the day, you're going to review that and have a look at what you actually trade your time for. And if you have a notepad with time on it, or you can jot down the time that you're doing it, so you know exactly what time I'm doing these different activities, you'll be able to start to make the move in the right direction of recognizing actually what you're doing. So whenever we want change, when we want to change something, we need to start with understanding, what am I doing right now? Because change doesn't mean I'm dumping everything I'm doing now and I'm going to start doing something new and it's going to work for you. It's not going to work for you. If you've got something that's working now, what we're trying to do is we want to identify the things you're doing that are working. We want to start to eliminate some of the things that are not working. They might seem urgent, they might seem important, but they're not actually contributing to you getting to the next level. So we want to gradually let those things go, and as we do that, we generate more time for ourselves, and then we can start to structure what we actually do into the marketing process. And this is what I'd recommend you to do. instead of just drawing out a new marketing process, I want you to go through that list of all the different activities that you do and try to identify what part of the process is this activity belonging in. And if it's not in the process, you might need to dump it. But what part of the process? Is this lead generation? Is this getting someone from lead to a prospect? Is this sales? If you are selling to a lead, then obviously that's something we're going to work on, and we're going to create a marketing process for that. But for the activities that you're already doing, what we want to do is we want to separate those activities and try to identify in what part of the marketing process this belongs. You might be saying, hey Matt, I don't have a marketing process. And I'm saying, hey, if you've got money coming in, you have some type of marketing process, and you need to identify that, and you need to work from that place, because you need to identify what's working. Something must be working if you're making money. And from that point, we start to introduce a better and more organized marketing process. And what we can do is we can group these activities. So if you're doing, for instance, you realize, hey, this is a prospecting activity. I'm doing this to get a prospect to purchase for the first time. Then we want to group those activities, and we want to possibly set a number of hours per day, or a number of days per week or a month that we really focus on that activity. And then basically we need to look at it from the prospect's point of view, from the lead's point of view, that we can move them smoothly through the process. So you're not calling up somebody 3 weeks later and they're like, hey, I forgot, who are you? I don't know what you're talking about. But they're going through a very timed strategic process. Also, when you're dealing with leads, you're not trying to sell to leads. You've got nothing to sell. Basically, you've got a service. There's something you can do for them. It might be a free consultation. It might be something that you can give them. It might be a trial. And then you don't even have to say it's free. You can just say there's no charge. Just include that to your pitch. There's no charge. There's no charge. All right, so look at what you're doing. Start breaking it up into components and have a look at actually what's going to be, what am I doing? What stage of the marketing process I'm at? And then you want to be separating it into the process. You want to also ask yourself questions. So another activity apart from those is you want to start asking yourself is, how do people find my business or service? When you're going through this and looking at your numbers, for instance, you want to be asking yourself, how did these people become prospects? And you want to start writing down, draw yourself a bit of a roadmap of how they actually became prospects. And when you see what's going on, then you can straight away see how to improve it. And you can use today's training to make significant improvements in your marketing process. You need to keep this in your mind every single day, is that I'm working on a marketing process. I'm working on a marketing process. Everybody in the internet marketing niche, for instance, they're always talking about funnels, which is a sales process, but you need to understand the marketing process. The marketing process is what's important to your sustainable business growth. You want to also categorize your activities. So once again, putting them in different groups of activities. You want to put the most important ones, recognize those as well, and see how that fits into the marketing process.